Good evening, and thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Jody Hammer, and I am the Career Services Specialist with the National Peace Corps Association's Global Reentry Program. I'm very happy to be with you here today to talk about the concept of really career indecision and really escaping the career indecision trap. So happy to be here with you, and we will this entire presentation will be available online at our global reentry playlist, which is on the YouTube channel for NPCA. So you can certainly go back and watch it, or any of our other ones that we've done. We have probably about 60 that are on there now, and always doing new ones and new topics and such. And we're always open for topics. So please do reach out if you have a topic of interest. I'm happy to consider that. So thank you so much for joining us tonight here. We're going to go ahead. I have some slides to share with you, and then I'm allowing adequate time, I hope, as well, for whatever questions you might have on the concept, on the subject of escaping career indecision and the career indecision trap. It's a big one. It's really is something that a lot of people, go through, and it's tough. So I want to start with just a quick poll, and what I'd ask you to do is just put in just put yes if it's the case. How many of you have felt or now feel torn between two or more careers or types of jobs? I want you to go ahead and put that in the chat box. I'll go ahead and open up mine so I have it here as well. I would love to know if anyone has felt, and if not, well, maybe you don't even need this. I imagine that several of you have felt torn between maybe different things to do. A lot of times people, go to Peace Corps and they have been doing one thing, or they maybe studied one thing and think they're going to do that when they get back. And then lo and behold, this little thing called Peace Corps happens. And it in a great way, I think oftentimes kind of has you reevaluate your maybe priorities or your interests or your needs, and you come back maybe with a very different thought of what you might do, and it might be completely different than what you studied in your undergrad, and that's okay. I'm wondering if so have any of you had that second thing happen? I know, Rachel, you had already weighed in saying you have, and Janet, thank you, and Yukari and Andrew, good. So you're in the right place. We're going to talk about this, or at least begin the conversation, and then you can do additional, work on your own. Take some of the tips that I suggest, and always, of course, feel free to contact me, give me an email, shoot me an email, and I'm happy to. I'll put that in the chat box as well, my email, and we can always talk a little more about it as well, and maybe answer more questions that you might have. But so you felt torn between the careers or jobs. What is holding you back? And if you can put that also in the chat box, I'd appreciate it. Thank you so much. Just what holds you back from either, maybe changing. Many of you might be employed right now and you're thinking about a career change. Others might be doing your job search, after you got back, after you evacuated, and you're looking for what's next. But what's holding you back? I just want to know that a little bit up front, because it'll help me as we go through, make sure that I make this as relevant to you and your ideas. Dan, that's a good one. I still have no idea what I'm going to do when I grow up. Too many great options. That's awesome. And that's actually a great attitude to have about it as well, right? There's so many great alternatives, right? Rather than, you're embracing that possibility, and wow, there's too many amazing things that I want to do in my life. And, life is too short to get all of them in, but you're focused on that positive. A lot of times it's more, people are more, well, I don't know, I just can't find what I like. And, and all of that, which is okay too. Whatever is the case, and that's just fine. Let's see, Julissa, yes, wanting to make the quote unquote right decision. Yep. And so part of that comes down to, what is the right decision? Not the answer to that question, but like, what makes it the right decision? Is there something, what is it about that job that would make it the right decision. And if you're comfortable with sharing that, you can either take yourself off mute or put it in the chat box. But that's a really good that's a good one, and I want to explore that a little more with you. I'm happy to explore it with you. Okay, and let's see, Rachel. Yes, small network and lack of experience in fields you're interested in. Yep, absolutely, and that can be the case. And we're going to talk a little bit about how to deal with that as well. Great. So thank you, everyone. You're really weighing in with a lot of alternatives, and I really appreciate it. A lot of content here. Janet, very true, right? Family, finances, like, you have other priorities as well, and things that you have to take into consideration before you make that kind of a decision. Those are just the realities, right? For a lot of us. And the lack of experience in the new fields, right? You don't feel like you're as qualified, so you worry about getting that job. And so we'll talk a little bit later on as well about how can you get some more experience in that, or knowledge in those areas, to help you maybe shine more and be that professional that they're maybe looking for, right? There's a lot of things that you can do in terms of trainings and online trainings and all kinds of things that we'll chat a little more about. Okay. And Andrew, I think this is the last comment here. I have a diverse professional background and a lot of things seem really cool. Boy, that seems kind of like Dan's. And again, that's an awesome place to be in. There's so many things that seem cool. It's like, wow. So any of those options, it sounds like you might have many good options or even great options that would make you feel fulfilled. And that makes it sometimes hard because you want to, it's hard to pick between the two or the three or the five or however many there are, because you want to make sure that that you get the best one, right? And the reality may be, boy, you may, be so interested in diverse fields that you could have a great experience regardless of what you did. So that can kind of take sometimes the pressure off of it, that a lot of people have where, well, I made a mistake before and I got into this job that I don't like. I want to make sure that the next one's better, where, they may be more hesitant to even move forward because they haven't necessarily identified that one that they know or think they know will make them happy. So all good conversation. Thank you, everyone. I really appreciate it. So let's go ahead and jump in here. So what holds people back from choosing or making a career change? And you all have said some of the items on here, but it's interesting. The number one thing that holds people back from choosing, or making a career change is fear, right? Fear of what? Fear of the unknown, right? Fear of, it ties in with the second one, the uncertainty. There's that fear of, am I going to make the right decision? And it goes back to someone here who had said, making sure I make the right decision. And a lot of what I talk to people about when you're faced with that, and that's that making the right decision, you need to kind of step back and kind of analyze too. Okay, so what would make this the right decision or the wrong decision, right? But what would make us focus on the right ones? That's fine. So would it be something that has flexibility to do teleworking because you have, I don't know, a situation, family situation, whatever, that would help, with, or, is it something that's going to pay you enough to, pay back all your loans and some extra high, maybe, loans you have and things like that. So there's lots of things that go into it to what is the right decision. But I always challenge people to really think about and actually get those down, like write them down, right? And I find physically writing them in a journal is great. Where you're actually, I know we can type it and we all do that and we do so much of that these days, but sometimes getting your mind off of and getting away from the screen can be really restorative and kind of help your mind to kind of open up and be more in a better place where you can think clearly, right? So I would encourage you to have a journal and, write other things in there as well. But, start to think about what is the right, what makes it the right job, what would make it the wrong job. That will really, I think it will really help you. The fear, as I said, fear is natural. I mean, fear of of making the wrong decisions sometimes, right? And that maybe I think is what someone, it's the opposite of what was said in the chat, wanting to make the right decision. So you have a lot of that fear of making the wrong decision. Is this going to end up maybe, maybe I won't get a job in that area, or maybe I'll get into it and I won't make enough money and I'll have to, change again. And, all of those kinds of, fear of that, unknown, right? But try to hold yourself into that, once you've gone through these steps that we're going to talk about and all of that, try to hold yourself in a positive frame of mind as much as you can, right? In terms of, okay, and I'm going to do a very concerted job search. I'm going to talk to people. I'm going to do da 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 da. I'm going to make the best decision for me. All of those things will help me to make the best decision for me. You know, and don't overanalyze it sometimes, which I think comes up on another slide we have here too. But so the uncertainty, not knowing what you want, like, people have said, well, I'm not sure, sometimes it's great. And, there's many things you want, like Dan had said, and Andrew had said, that's great. But other times it's like, well, I don't know. Nothing really excites me right now. And I just am not, I don't know what I want to do. And, that could be a lot of different things as well. I think, we're living in a very stressful time with, COVID and all of that reality and the inability to connect, on maybe as meaningful of a level with, friends and loved ones, even, relatives, right? Really kind of puts us in, I think, a different state of mind. And sometimes I think it can actually impact as well our, our emotional health and well-being. And please know that, that is just as important as anything else that you're working on. And, if you're feeling that, that you would benefit from, we have a peer support network at NPCA and the Global Reentry Program, and it's just gotten up, and they're starting. Sometimes it really can connect. It can help to connect with people who are like-minded or people who understand what you're going through, which is quite unique out there, right? Most people haven't been ripped from, if you're one of the evacuees, ripped from their country of service with like almost zero notice, and suddenly you're back here in the States in this COVID reality. That can really take a toll on your outlook and just your emotional well-being and such. So I would encourage you to tap into whatever resources you have, obviously as well, whether it's working with a therapist, whether it's working with a career counselor, whether it's tapping into the peer support network. I'm happy to talk with you as well about some of your aspects related to the job search, and just tap into those resources that you have to get over that and through that. The financial security in the present job, and this is a big one, right? I'm sure most of you have heard of like the golden handcuffs, right? And a lot of times, the examples, and I'm not saying this is always the case with lawyers, but with lawyers, they go to law school, they pay a lot of money generally for their degree, a lot of money, right? They come out with a lot of debt, right? They've done their, when they're in their, grad school and all of that, and they're prepped for, so they end up taking a job in maybe corporate America and corporate law. And there's nothing wrong with corporate law, but it's not the right fit for everyone. And so sometimes they get too used to those benefits, right? The higher pay, the benefits, in terms of health insurance, all of that, all of those kinds of things are maybe significantly higher than they would have in many other jobs. And so they kind of get trapped into it, or they feel trapped into it, maybe in part because they have high loans and they're trying to pay those off. But many might realize, quickly or at some point, that, what, I am just not feeling fulfilled here. What really, and some people in that situation have gone to Peace Corps, right? And they come back and they do something very different. But you might change your mind, and yet sometimes it's hard to leave an industry because of the specialized training that you have and all of those, the higher salary. It does make it difficult, but not impossible. You can certainly make a career change. You just need to be prepared for certain things, and there's certain ways you can prepare for that as well. So great. Thank you, Dan, for sharing the peer support network email. If anyone is interested, that's wonderful. Thanks. And then another thing that maybe, holds you back is maybe you've tried it in the past, changing careers, right? Or, in this certain sector, trying to get a job in that sector. And either you experienced a lack of response or rejection from past, job applications, which is hard, right? When you get that, rejection, it's never fun to be rejected, or even worse, sometimes never told that you didn't get it. Like they just don't respond, right? And that's really frustrating as well. But sometimes what that does to your psyche, right, is it's like, well, I didn't get it before. I'm not qualified for this. I can't go for it. When the reality of it is, there are many reasons why you might not have gotten it, right? It could be that there's certain trainings that you don't have, or whatever, but there could be like trainings. There's so many online trainings, many of which are free these days, that are available to people. So you could certainly take maybe, a class or a training, a certification training or something like that online, to make yourself more competitive for that, so that you would then maybe merit more consideration. They might, give you more consideration when you apply. The other thing is you might want to relook at your resume or your cover letter, right? Your application materials, because maybe you didn't quite craft it in the way that they prefer. Or maybe in that industry preferred, formatting option, right? There are some differences. And so, maybe you could just retool your resume, your cover letter. And that's, something that you could, reach out to me for a little more guidance on as well. I'm happy to help you with that as well. So there's lots of reasons why you maybe didn't get the response, but don't let that be your, end all be all. Oh, I can't apply for this sector because I haven't gotten a job there, whatever. It could take you some time. But I truly think if you are dedicated to the process and you do what's needed, and you redo, for example, your resume, those kinds of things, take some kind of courses and make sure that you are, you're qualified for it. And or if you're changing from one area to another area and you don't have significant experience, which somebody had mentioned, Janet had mentioned actually in the chat box, lack of expertise in that new field, there are ways you can get some of that experience, right? That can be, not just from a paid full-time job. You could actually even get some of that from some volunteer work types of things that you might do. And I'm going to talk about that a little bit later. So remind me if I don't come back to that, because there's some really good, I think, resources for you in terms of identifying similar types of organizations where you might be able to get some experience, on the side, when you're, even if you are doing a full-time job. And if you're not doing a full-time job, it's, where you could do some volunteer work there, maybe more significant even amount, and get some of that experience. So great. And then career indecision, right? That's, kind of at the end. I mean, we're talking about, this is the whole thing we're talking about, right? Is, escaping that career indecision trap. Like what, so I want to really focus a little bit on what holds you back, and then how you can actually get out of that. And then we'll switch it to any topics, related to, some of the kind of more traditional, job search aspects, and really talking about our take on those. So great. So let's talk briefly about career paralysis, or as they'll call it, analysis paralysis, right? So you have, it really involves more of kind of a, it's a physical and mental, feeling physically and mentally stuck, right? Like you're just stuck. You can't really move forward. Something's holding you back. And so how that usually happens, you're going around in circles in your head. And it might even start with more of a, feeling excited, right? And feeling, by the alternatives, like, wow, there's many different areas I'd be interested in, and interested in pursuing. But then, because you start analyzing them, right? And kind of analyzing, yeah, but, yes, but, oh, but that doesn't have this, but this doesn't have that. And you basically rule out, you end up discounting them, right? And so that over analysis, right, over analyzing is what leads to this inaction. So then your mind's kind of in this, stuckness, and that really takes over, and it's hard to get out of that, right? Because you kind of, you've yeah, you've just gotten yourself in a situation where it's like, I don't know, you're confused, you've gone around and around in circles and you just don't feel like you're making progress. Does anyone feel that they're in that now? Out of curiosity, you can just put yes in the chat box. Um, because we're gonna continue, talking a little bit about how you get out of this. There's a lot of there's a site, careerpsychologist.com. It talks a lot about career analysis, and I took some of this from there. One of the and how to deal with it, right? Say you are in that paralysis or whatever, and then you're thinking, okay, I'm going to go forward. I'm going to, I'm now open to pursuing this new job, a new job, and what do I need to do and all of that. What you don't want to do, because it will surely end up with more of a new job that you also, or you hate. And so there's things like this, thoughts like, but I'm good at this, right? So it's like, just because you're good at something doesn't mean you should do it, right? And that's why when you're talking about, there's if any of you have seen, like, there's the spheres where you talk about like your skill set, and then what you're good at, what you like to do, and what, like, there's these different parts, and where they overlap is where you want to explore, right? So you want to be good at it and love it, or feel that passion, or that kind of, intrinsic motivation, like you want to do the job, right? That's the key. So don't just look at but I'm good at this, because if you do that, you might be in a really boring job that you hate forever and ever because you're good at it. Well, great, but are you happy? And that's what it really comes down to too. The second one, but I need money. Yes, and this can come in many forms, right? So it might be that you discredit an entire industry because you're assuming, because you've heard a lot, and I've heard a lot of this as well, but I know there are exceptions also. And many that do pay better, but you think, oh, I would love to work in the nonprofit sector, but I need money. You're assuming that it's not going to pay anything much. I mean, very low, and you're going to be doing, sometimes the stereotype is, oh, you'll be wearing multiple hats, small agency, small organization, multiple hats, and not getting much, paid well for it. So that just seems like a road to burnout. And there are many good nonprofits that, I mean, there are nonprofits that fall in that category of, they're like starting out and they don't have the funds, and maybe you do help, cut your teeth, if you will, in that organization, and you get those additional skills, and then you go on to maybe a better paying one, where where you can, apply, your skill set that you have from this other one that maybe didn't pay as much, and get something. So I remind folks that your career, when you're thinking about, okay, I might be in an indecision mode, your very next career that you choose, and or in the job within that, may not be the end all be all job you want at the end, right? You need to get the experience at a certain level, and it's going to make you more well-rounded, and then make you perhaps more, qualified for the managerial role of that, group, and however you're looking at wanting to maybe move up. So thinking about those, but I need money can also be, said, well, I'm doing a job search right now, and I would love to do a job search, but I can't afford to, like, leave here and be unemployed, right? And that's true for most people, right? It's a lot, it's hard to walk away from a job, and sometimes there's reasons you should, right? Maybe it's a job that really is affecting your emotional, and mental well-being, and you need to walk away for that reason, and you can make it work by maybe doing some part-time things, or maybe returning home if you have that option, and things like that to get your expenses down. But sometimes it's always easiest to get a job. They say it's always easiest to get a job when you have a job, right? And not that you can't get a job if you don't have a job, right? But in some way, it's because you have something that's paying the bills right now, and you can spend your downtime, and your open time looking for that better job that you're going to really like, and love, and feel passionate about. It can be harder to be doing a job search when you don't have that job and you are, living on, very little means, right? Obviously, I know that also you are all RPCVs, and as Peace Corps volunteers, you are very resourceful and very good at living on little amounts of money or stretching things. But I get it. It definitely is hard to do that. So the third thing, you don't want to just tell yourself, things will get better. Yeah, I've been miserable for a year, but things are going to get better. Yep, they're going to get better. And you just feed it may be that it does. So not discrediting that, especially in the beginning, giving it some time is a good idea, maybe, right? Maybe it will bring you to that point that you wanted and it will get better. But if it's been, 6 months, it's been a year and you're like miserable, I wouldn't be betting the bank on the fact that that's going to get better. I would at least start looking for other alternatives to also have as options. So, um, the next one, of course, I'm afraid, and that's what we went back to, in the beginning when we talked about fear, and fear is such a natural feeling. We as humans, I think, are kind of conditioned to, fear of that uncertainty on the, not knowing how something's going to be or not be. It's always, a chance, and it's always taking a risk, if you will. It's going to require you to take a risk stepping into a new career, right? A new job. It is a risk, yes, and you know what, truth be told, it may not work out. I mean, I'm going to be very honest with you, it may not, but you know what, better to have tried it than to have sat in a position that you absolutely know is not you, and you are maybe miserable and hating it, and it's impacting your own like state of mind. Get into something, and you know what, by getting into that, you might then discover, oh, you know what, it's actually this that I'm interested in, and you can work toward that, which is great. So it's all about also like, going from things to things, right? You're going to have several careers in your life. I don't know the latest stat, but I remember reading at one point, it was like you're going to have, 5 to 7 different careers in your life, not jobs, careers. And I just was reading something, and it was about the number of jobs you have by the time you're 40, I think it was, and it was 14 different jobs, at least, right? If not more, but that was like the average, right? So you might have many more, and yeah. So anyway, great. And then I'm going to open it up for some questions. So please put any of your questions in the chat box right now for questions so far, and I'll answer those before we go on with the slideshow. So please do that. And then the last one on this is, of course, nothing else, would be better. And that can be that's more of your attitude. Like that's almost more of a, you're giving up on anything being possibly better. And that's sad. That is a very sad state to be in. And if it is what you're thinking, I would, definitely encourage you to try to counter that, to say, hey, you know what, maybe it will be, maybe it won't be, but I'm not going to know if I don't try, right? You're never going to get out of that stage of, feeling hopeless, if you will, kind of with the job search, and what's going to be better, and, what's out there possibly, if you don't, risk it and take that step. So, any questions coming in here? Let me see. And I apologize, folks, that I am not on, that I can't be seen. Unfortunately, my camera is still broken, and we are still waiting for our computers to come in. So my colleague and I are waiting patiently for our new laptops. So let's see. I don't see any questions, and that's okay. If you do have questions, please just put them in the chat box there, and we'll come back. I'll come back to those in a few minutes, and we'll see what we can do. Okay. So how to end up with the job that you want, right? This is more, and this, one of the things you want to do is, you can do your assessments. We talk about career assessments, and there's a lot of free career assessments that are out there, and type work. And I mean things like the Myers-Briggs, the Myers-Briggs inventory. There's, the Keirsey. There's several different ones, right? I don't know if you guys could think of other ones that you've done. There's the strengths finders. There's lots of different ones. Now, some are free and some have a charge. But there are many that are free or free versions of the other ones that you can take and get more or less the same kind of, valuable information from them as well. And they're great. So that's really good to do. And yet, I don't know, for those of you who may have done those and you feel like, oh, like I still don't know from doing this. We are humans, right? And I loved one of the blogs that I was reading, talked about, yeah, people put so much into the assessments, like you have to do these, and this is the end all be all, and this will tell what you're meant to do. Well, we're human beings, as I said, we're complex, creatures, and we don't all fit into that. So, it may or may not help, but it's certainly not going to hurt. So doing some of that to help, especially if you're feeling torn between various options, it can really help you in some of those ways. So do some of that and the reflection more on like what you want to do. And I'm going to refer you all to watch. There is a podcast, and I don't know if Dan is still online, if you are able to maybe get from Spotify the career happiness podcast that we did. And if not, I'll definitely put it in the follow-up email that goes out to you. And it's a really good one. I love that podcast because it features a colleague in the coaching arena, and Denise Reedman Fowler, and she is very good. And she talks a lot about. She has some specific things that she discusses. I don't have time to go into all of it here because we have, I want to make sure I leave time for questions and all of that too. But some work that you can do, some journaling work that you can do to help you realize. And there is, an activity where you write a letter to yourself from, like maybe that you would open when you, retire or something. And there's an alternative activity that I've had people do in the past too, where you write your own obituary, which sounds very, I know, very negative, but it's what would you want to be included in that? What are the kinds of things that you would want to have accomplished? And that can really help you find more direction in, okay, well, I want to do that, so I need to move in this direction. And it can really shed a lot of good light. And there's some 32 squares is a great activity that she covers in that podcast, excuse me. So please watch that if you get a chance. It's on Spotify. You can also get it by doing just go to Spotify and then put in Jobs with Jody, and then look among, I think we have 16 of the podcasts so far, and one of them, I think it's the fourth one maybe, is on career happiness, and you can listen to that one. Okay, great. Next, identify all of the options before you begin to analyze, right? So in other words, don't talk yourself out of certain options before you even explore them. Like, oh yeah, that'd be great, but I don't have this, but I don't have what. No, I just want you to leave the slate open. And this process is just putting down these options, all of the options that you're interested in. No judgment, no anything like that. Okay. So, and then after you've done that and you have, the different options, then you're going to evaluate a little bit more about the alternatives. So what are the pros of this job? What are the, cons? What are, like, what would be good about this? What would be difficult to handle? What would make a transition easy versus difficult? All of those kinds of things to evaluate what you have out there, and to do really trying to do an unbiased kind of, but for yourself, of course. So you do bring in, your own desires and factors and all of that, but try not to discredit things too much at that stage either. So, and then lastly here on this 4-part process, really get into action. So talking to people, training, doing some trainings. Like I was saying, you can do some, a lot of trainings on free trainings now on Coursera, or some different, online universities are offering a lot of really cool training. So maybe, when you talk to people and you do kind of career chats and stuff like that, with people, you can do those virtually, absolutely, and connecting with people who are professionals in that career that you're interested in exploring, to get a little more insight on, what has their experience been? What do they like most about the job that they're in, or the career field, whatever? What's the biggest challenge in that field? What do they wish they'd known when they first got into it? all of those. What other organizations are, that they might know who are, good options for someone with your skill set, things like that. So talking and getting advice from people. And let me tell you, RPCVs are very open to helping other RPCVs. Okay. They just are. I mean, so make sure when you do reach out via LinkedIn and you do the people search and all of that, and you look for, past employer and current employer, once you identify somebody that's like a second degree contact, for example, that you want to reach out to and you want to connect with, make sure you do the personalized connection. And in that, right away, if they're an RPCV, hey, I'm a fellow RPCV, having been evacuated earlier this year due to COVID from whatever country, that right there, they see that. And it's like, they know you're real. They know you're an RPCV. You've already gotten beyond that. Who is this stranger and what do they want from me? Right. I'd like to connect with you professionally. And then once they connect with you and accept you, then you go back without the character limits and you're able to, say, thanks so much for connecting with me. Because ultimately they did that. They accepted the connection, right? It's always great to, know additional or whatever, meet additional RPCVs. I'm currently in the process of exploring, opportunities in different fields. And one of the areas I'm very interested in is and as such, I'm looking to connect with people who might have 15, 20 minutes of their time to chat about themselves and their own experience. Might you be interested or able to do this, at some point? Like most of them will be like, sure, like they want to help, but try to use the word career chat instead of informational interview, which doesn't roll off your tongue nearly as well. And it also infers a longer like interview, an hour. And people are, oftentimes like, oh, I'd love to help, but I don't have an hour. So by keeping it down in the time, you can actually gain, more traction and meet more people. And it really does come down to networking. I mean, up to, what is it? The stats will vary a little bit, but up to 70% of employers, I mean, when they're hiring people, they often, it's through an employee referral or through somebody who, like connected them to the employer. So it really is huge. And you want to take advantage of that, because, and the reason for it's not that they'll hire you when you're unqualified generally just because you know somebody, but it's more, wow, this person's really great and they're a hard worker. If they're saying this person should be considered, I'm going to give them an interview and I'm going to consider them. And so you have this leg up, right? So I think that's what it really comes down to in terms of that. And then, of course, applying and getting your application materials in order. And, I don't have separate slides for this because it just would have been way too long, but I definitely am open to and want to talk about, the various aspects. But when you talk to, people and get their insight, you're going to also talk to them about, resume styles and what kind is most appropriate, or, do people usually use a key qualifications or objective or whatever? I personally hate objectives. So not a big fan. I'd rather have a summary of qualifications, or key qualifications is my favorite. It's like we have a lot of them, but these are my key qualifications. And that's the area that you're really tailoring a lot to that specific job. So, but they'll be able to, give you guidance on, certain things. Oh, you really need to make sure that the names that are, they want in the, in the required skills, that you show that you have that many years of experience, and down to like, if it's part-time, they give you, if it's 20 hours a week, if they want 2 years of experience, that's 2 years full-time. So that would be 4 years of 50% time, right? So they can give you that kind of guidance and advice so that you can make the strongest application possible. Okay. So that's what I have on some of the basic thing. I do want to just have here, I put this one in here. I love the Balanced Careers. They have some really good graphics and such, and I thought it would be a good launching pad for us for follow-up questions. So please start putting your questions. So any questions about escape the topic tonight, escaping the career indecision trap, and then questions on any aspect of the job, like search your job application materials when you're in that situation, are all welcome. So please just put those on in there, and we'll try to take care of you there. So okay. So any questions coming out? I'm happy to answer any of them. We kind of already talked about the first upper left here, the assess your interests and skills. That's, not only the assessments and, your type personality, all of that, but it's also looking at just taking a survey of, or not a survey, making a list of, okay, what are the technical skills that I bring to this type of field? What are the ones that I don't have that I need to brush up on or master or, whatever. So all of those kind of things, I mean, that are in there, that's all going to help you, right? And that's why I say as well, it's nice to kind of have a journal almost, if you will, for some of this. So any questions coming in? I don't see any from our participants yet, but I'm here and happy to answer any of them. Yeah, I mean, they're talking about too, the considering alternative careers. Um, that's when you're going to be like looking at the different kinds of careers, looking at, about them. You can find out information from, for example, the Department of Transportation. There's a lot, I'm sorry, Department of Labor, excuse me. There's a lot of information on different careers, and there's different career profiles that you can actually you can actually look at as well. So lots of information on this. I'm going ahead right now and putting in my email address for you to have, should you want to reach out to me with either another topic or questions on this one if they don't come out right now. So I can also stay on a few minutes late, if, after we, pause the record, if you want to, just unmute yourself and maybe, chat that way if you're, tired of typing. But the informational interviews, like I was saying on the right, that is, basically the career chats. And those are just instrumental. I really encourage you to do. And don't just, when you do just one with the career, like, people are different, we're all unique, right? So somebody might think, one way about their career, whatever, and another person may have very different information and insight. So, it's good to even try to, connect with multiple people, as you can, right? Now, job shadowing here while I wait for more questions to come in. Yeah, job shadowing's great. Oh, and Janet, perfect timing. You must have read my mind there. So you suggest one approach is asking to volunteer or yeah, job shadow. I'm going to go through the volunteering thing that I was mentioning earlier on as well. So first of all, if you are looking to gain some experience in a certain, you're looking to change sectors, and so gaining some volunteer experience is fine. It's in federal government, there's absolutely no difference, volunteer work versus paid. It doesn't matter at all. It doesn't make it more valuable at all. You can prove your skill set with 100% volunteer work if that's what, you were doing. So that's good to know. But there's some tools that you can use. There's volunteermatch.org, and I'm going to write this in here as well. Volunteermatch.org is a great site for finding volunteer work in various sectors, geographically. So you can put in, if you live in, Iowa, Cedar Falls, Iowa, you can plug in Cedar Falls, Iowa, where I'm from, and you can find what comes up for you. So in various sectors, and what we'll do, you can put in, for example, maybe you are interested in like, HIV AIDS work, right? So you could put in, wherever you are, geographic, whatever your perimeter is, and then you could put in keyword, and it could be AIDS or HIV or whatever. If you're interested in education or, refugee work, whatever the case may be, you can put those keywords in, and they'll pop up everything, all these different organizations that, have interests or needs for volunteer work, right? The cool thing about that is, even if you're not going to volunteer, when you do that search, it's going to come up with a variety of organizations working in your area of interest, which is pretty cool. And it's a great way for you to then to have a launching pad to investigate, oh, let's look at this organization. Let me look and see what kinds of work they do. Let's look at their website. Let's, see if I can't, find somebody who works there that I could do a, career chat with. Like, it's all about widening, right? That your spread of your alliance, your web of resources. And so that's a great one. I've always recommended, volunteermatch.org, and see if you can't find information and people to do career chats with, and or opportunities to do a little bit of volunteer work, because let me tell you, that is really good for the soul, especially when you're doing a job search, and or if you're doing a full-time job search, or maybe you're working in an unfulfilling job. Doing a little bit of volunteer work on the side can certainly become the highlight of your day. And when you're doing a job search, it's a part of that job search, so it's an instrumental tool, so you can feel good about being productive in your job search as well by doing that. And by doing some kind of volunteer work where you just feel that, passion and that commitment, it really helps to kind of light up your soul, right? And really helps you to be able to be that more positive professional who might be working for an organization where you just absolutely do not like your employer. They're just, maybe it's the person, your boss is horrible. This can help you kind of keep things, kind of keep your health and keep focused on positive things and keeping that positive um, attitude even in difficult times. Okay. So that's the volunteer match. Now, job shadowing is another thing. Job shadowing could be a great, maybe when you did that, volunteer match, you identify an organization working in it, and you might reach out, and see if you might be able to do a little bit of a job shadow and do that, or maybe you ask for an informational interview with somebody, and then you ask them, do they ever allow job, kind of just job shadowing, because I'd love to just see a day in the life, or, whatever, and help in whatever way. I mean, a lot of times people are, they're very open to that oftentimes. And volunteers, hello, they love and need, assistance in so many ways. So if you're offering to do a little bit of some kind of volunteer work or helping them in some way, that's great. That's a win-win, for them. So, um, yeah, I think that answers your question, yeah, and how to, suggesting, how to approach that. But equally, if you know somebody who works in the field, reach out to them. They're already in your circle, right? Even better. If you might even place something, say you're doing a full-time job search right now, and you're, from COVID, and you're really looking at what's next. You could put it on your, I don't know, Facebook or whatever social media that you're doing, saying, hey, does anyone know anyone working in the XYZ industry? Let me know, ping me if so. You don't have to put your whole story of what you're looking for, but you can put that, I'm interested in connecting with somebody in that field, and that can open up and have people, suggest. Okay. Great. Any other questions coming out right now? I don't see any. If I've missed one, and you're obviously welcome to take yourself off mute and ask me if you have any questions. I know we still have a few minutes left, and I'm happy to stay on a little as well, but just want to, and we are at the end for Q&A anyway, so let's just stay on this slide here. So any other questions, either unmuting yourself or in the chat box? And if you're interested, you can certainly download the chat box. If there are some emails and stuff that you want from here, or links or things like that, you can just go, to the bottom of your chat box, participants or chat box, sorry, and then just do the download chat box. Super easy. So great. Well, if there aren't any, I'm going to go ahead and bring this to a close, and I will stay on for a few minutes extra live to help folks if they are interested as well. But thank you so much for joining us today. All righty. Thank you.